I mean, if you're a Bears fan, you're thinking forward progress. Come on.
10, 219, 219.
Forward Progress, a Chicago Bears podcast with Dan Bernstein and Matt Abeticola on 312 Sports.
We give you Forward Progress on 312 Sports as we talk about the first place Chicago Bears for right now atop the NFC and heading into a part of their schedule that will be the defining period pre-playoffs, if they're able to indeed stay on this trajectory to the postseason. And joining us today to provide information and perspective and perhaps some polysyllabic cursing is Courtney Cronin of ESPN, the veteran scribe and broadcaster who has been covering the Bears and the NFL for years, taking the time to join us. Courtney, thanks again. How are you?
I'm good. How are you guys doing?
Good. So as of now, you are the reigning swearing champion on Forward Progress. Courtney Dice Cronin.
Yes, I'm sure she's very proud of that, Dan.
Yeah.
I'm sure. It's very special. I keep feeling now this week that for all that we've done to prop up the vestiges of what they call the primordial rivalry, this is the first week in many, many, many years that Bears-Packers kind of feels worth it. Like both teams are good enough for it to matter, and that does give it a little extra frisson.
Yeah, they don't usually have two teams going into this rivalry that are above 500, and that's a significant deal with this rivalry where it stands right now. And I feel like we go back to January, Ben Johnson's comments about, wanting to beat Matt LaFleur twice a year being part of the reason why he took the Bears job to begin with, to stay in the division. That reignited it. And then to get to see all these months later, you've got the first place team in the division going against the second place team in the division with the division on the line this weekend. And a lot that could change. Like if the Bears lose this game, they drop to the 7 seed. If they win, they stay at the 1 seed. Obviously there are, things that have to happen with the Rams and Cardinals game too that could determine even more jockeying of positioning in the NFC playoff picture. But it's a significant deal how much higher the stakes are this time around with the rivalry versus years past where, the Packers didn't have to play their starters the entirety of last year's game because they had already locked up their spot in the postseason. And yeah, it was significant that the Bears won that game, but it wasn't as evenly matched as this one's going to be, where there is a lot more on the line.
It was a curious situation that took place this week with the media, with Ben Johnson. Monday, he had some critical thoughts of the passing game. And he didn't solo out or single out Caleb Williams. He talked about the entire passing game, that they weren't happy with it, not satisfied with where it's at. The next day, he makes a point, I think off of one of your questions too, Courtney, that he says, hey, I wasn't, he really sings the praises of Caleb Williams. When I heard him Monday, I didn't take that as a shot at Caleb Williams. Why do you feel that he took the stance to really go out and sing the praises of Caleb when he wasn't singling out Caleb on Monday?
Because the narrative of the 2025 season has always been, by year's end, will you know whether you have won games in spite of the quarterback or because the quarterback. So when he says we are winning in spite of our passing game right now, I think that he thought that could be construed as I'm not happy with the quarterback and I'm not happy with the way that he's playing. Now, obviously, people know like the passing game is much more than just one player. It's protection. It's receivers running the right route at the right route depth, blocking, all of those things. But the quarterback's always going to receive the brunt of everything when you talk about the person who throws the football. So I think Ben looked at that and said, maybe that came across as a little harsh, even though I don't think he needed to walk it back at all. Like,
exactly.
I thought it was fair because here's the thing. In all of this, Caleb Williams is the most inaccurate quarterback right now among 32 qualified starters in the NFL. That is a fact. And he has a sub, 58% completion percentage on the season. That's not good right now. So
as the head coach too, if he's not happy with his quarterback, why can't he say he's not happy? Like he's earned all the credibility in the world right now.
Yeah, but I don't think he's not happy with Caleb. I think that there's issues in the passing game that, it was windy in Philly. Now, is that the reason? Like there were some big wind gusts, but I don't feel like that should have been I mean, Ben can probably looks at himself and puts the blame on himself for calling 36 pass plays in those circumstances when they were running the ball so effectively. So that's why I think he felt he needed to, inject some sort of, clarification there, even though I don't think anybody who read that comment, heard Ben Johnson talk initially, thought that he was singling out Caleb Williams in specific. The question came from when I asked him about Caleb's accuracy issues on Monday, and then it devolves into that last line of, we're winning in spite of our passing game right now, not because of it, and it needs to be better. Everybody says it needs to be better. Cole Kmet called it a weak link the other day because it is. And for as good as this team is and what it's built on, a dominant rushing attack, an opportunistic defense, in a one and done situation, you need the pass game to look a lot better than it does right now to feel confident that you can make it further in the postseason if they get there.
It's so interesting to hear you finish your thought in that way, because I find myself now starting some questions and starting some comments by saying, if the Bears win the Super Bowl, this will have happened. Or if the Bears win the Super Bowl, it will be. Like, how many games from here to there will they have won because their quarterback becomes what we think he can be? And that's the context in which where it's completely fair to examine some of these things. And I get back to what he said when he took the job about be comfortable being uncomfortable or get comfortable being uncomfortable. And I think that when Caleb Williams has said he wants to be coached hard, he craves that. This is it.
Yeah.
And press conferences like that's the embodiment of the public facing aspect of being coached hard. That if we're going to win a championship, you're going to be a win because of guy. You're the quarterback of the Bears.
And so, he still needs to be. Like, I know,
yes.
5 game winning drives this season in the fourth quarter and overtime, second most in the NFL. All of those things are great, but the passing game has to be better, and it starts with the quarterback. Like, I know that there's so many other things that factor in there, but it's on him with some of his off-target passes to fix those things. Like, ultimately, that's what it boils down to. And I do think that Ben has done a really good job of living up to the promise that he was going to coach this quarterback hard, that he was going to keep him accountable, that he was going to put him in these situations where it might be, he might be learning something that's brand new, and it would suck for the first couple of times as he's learning a concept and trying to master it. But eventually he'll get there, knowing that, like, if you can trust that process, and Ben has given him no reason not to, and given him every reason to believe he can take him from point A to point F, that it's going to work out by the end of the season. I still think it will. I just think that right now, in this stretch where they have the second hardest strength of schedule remaining over these next 5 games, they've got to figure out the passing game and figure out some of the root issues within Caleb Williams and accuracy. And I don't think that's a knock in a bad way on a quarterback. It's trying to fix a problem.
Yeah, and with his inaccuracy issues, what have you learned or inferred from being around the coaching staff, how they feel about Caleb? Because the fact that he has these game-winning drives, and he's a playmaker at the highest level, the elite level in the NFL, yet there's opportunities with a clean pocket and good protection and a good foundation to throw, and he's just off target more times than he should be, given his ability. What do you infer or hear or feel from the coaching staff about Caleb as an NFL QB?
Well, we know he can make the special play, and it feels like that kind of what rights every wrong in the moment. Like when he throws that pass, like he threaded this beautiful ball to Colston Loveland over the middle of the field. I believe it was in the second half of that Eagles game. And then, of course, the one he throws over the top to Cole Kmet for the game-winning, effectively their game-winning touchdown.
Very, very hard pass.
Very hard pass, very hard catch. Like, all of it was perfect. And it's like, how do you get those moments to happen more frequently within the context of his, a 60-minute game? And I think that it's like you can live with some of the inaccuracy issues, knowing that he can make up for it. But I think what they want to see is a more consistent, kind of like what we talked about with this team getting down to the wire in the fourth quarter. Can they start doing that for 55 minutes before the final 5 minutes of the game? I think that is kind of a parallel with how they view Caleb Williams in this passing game and how it needs to get on track, where you don't want to constantly be playing in catch-up mode and playing in the moment, in those moments where, like, you feel like that could come earlier in games and give yourself a little bit more comfort and just to be able to see it established on a more consistent basis. I mean, there have been times where, he's thrown the ball a lot. I forget. I think it was that Steelers game where he had like 18 pass attempts in a row. And like Ben's like, oh, I didn't even think of that in the moment. But like clearly you trust your quarterback to be able to continue to throw the ball even when it doesn't look great. And that was a game where he was only outside the pocket on 5 attempts. Like they forced him to stay in there. And he won from in there. But there was also these off-target throws from a clean pocket where you're like, some of the things that you saw in week 1, like the one to DJ Moore in the ends in the going to north end zone against the Vikings week 1. Why is that still happening all these weeks later? And I think that might just be the maturation of a second-year quarterback, and it's not something that gets fixed right now. It might have to be a mechanical issue that they fix with him in the offseason. But to say, like, bringing it kind of full circle to what Ben said, winning in spite of the passing game, not because of it, Caleb Williams is still a reason that they are winning games. I think that part is probably what Ben wanted to establish, so it doesn't sound like he's not, in this at all. Because you can look at last week's game and say it was Nashawn Wright's turnover on the tush push when he ripped the ball away, but then put the offense in position to ground and pound their way to a win. So that's run game and that's defense. Where's the quarterback in all of that? That's what I think that Ben was trying to get to, that Caleb is a big part of the reason why they're winning games, even if it looks like two different units that he's not directly responsible for or won't get the direct credit for, or is what carrying them to wins.
What highlights all of this that we're discussing is the fact that the running game has been so reliable, so powerful, so creative. And when those opportunities are there, we've heard Ben Johnson talk about hunting coverages. It means each of these opportunities is now more valuable. So it doesn't seem like a missed pass or a missed opportunity because they're going for big chunks every time. These are missed field flippers. These are missed touchdowns. There are opportunities to change a game, which is why I think we're focusing on all of it. Mm-hmm. I'm wondering too, now that we're seeing the distribution of playing time between Kyle Monangai and DeAndre Swift, what Johnson does not want to do is telegraph anything based on personnel packages. And you earn that by having multifaceted players and developing those multifaceted talents. Have you noticed any tendencies, anything to say, okay, this is a Monangai series. Mm-hmm. Can the defense say, well, they're more likely to do this now, they're less likely to do this now? Is Johnson going to be self-scouting to try to say, I'm going to run Monangai plays with Swift in the game and Swift plays with Monangai in the game?
Well, I think that you can look at post week 5, when they pick back up in Washington and seeing how they were divvying up series between running backs. And it would be like, this is a DeAndre Swift series, this is a Kyle Monangai series, to get those guys in a rhythm. And I think that has stayed pretty consistent, not rotating guys in and out in a specific series, giving each one their own to start establishing a rushing attack. Obviously, they're on the field at the same times at times, but that was the first thing I noticed. I think it's just living up to what their roles are as runners. First and foremost, Kyle Monangai is a bruiser. He's 5'8". He's stocky. He's the between the tackles guy. And I think that that's where he really made his hay against Cincinnati. And that's where Ben Johnson figured, okay, if I need to set the tone physically, this is the person that I'm going to establish that with. It's not to say that DeAndre Swift doesn't do it, because we saw him do it. I mean, they had like 183 yards, combined between the two of them, rushing between the tackles. That's an insane amount that Philly has not given up since the Cowboys game last year in like week 13 or whatever it was in 2024. So I think you can do it with both, but it's playing to each runner's strength, which for DeAndre Swift, you get him outside, he's dangerous. That is where he's always going to be a home run threat. And for Ben Johnson to have like a pulse, like the EQ, so to speak, of the best way to utilize his players to attack an opposing defense, that is what I think we've seen now from like week 6 onward, specifically with the run game. I
guess my question then is the whole call sheet open with either one? Because I think ultimately that's what he's always talking about
Sure.
is you never know what formation, personnel grouping, that they've got to be on their toes for everything. And it takes time to build that.
It
I'm just
does.
wondering if the key is to get this, like he said, part of what he meant by we're going to be playing our best football in December is he's figuring out all this stuff. And the goal then is I'm wondering, can they do everything they want to do with either one of them?
Well, I think that 200-yard rushing performances last week would lead you to believe, yes, they can. And I think that there are instances like we saw in Philadelphia when they were having their way up front. I mean, when the offensive line is run blocking that well, you can do a lot of things. And like the direction of those runs, going to the right of center, like for both guys, that's where they were getting the majority of their production. And I think that would lead you to believe that no matter who's in the game, that philosophy can hold true. But I do still think that styles of runners, very similar to Gibbs and Montgomery, you've got Swift does certain things really, really well. They're going to put him in position to shine. Monangai, he's good for an anytime touchdown, any game. I mean, I feel like I hear all these prop bets of like, what should I go with? I'm like, go with the Kyle Monangai, like anytime touchdown, because he's going to be there at the goal line like he was last week, 4 in a row. Like that is because he's a bruiser. He's your physical imposing threat that you can use better in short yardage situations. And that's what they've been able to establish with this two-headed, rushing attack that they have.
So looking at the other side of the ball, it was interesting hearing Kevin Byard a week or two ago talk about this cross training that Dennis Allen did in the offseason going into the season where guys were in different positions. Is that had such an impact on how guys have stepped up to play when you have reserves coming in and then reserves of reserves coming in? Or is it more to it with Dennis Allen and his staff?
There's definitely like a benefit to it, although the safety position has not been something that's been affected by injuries like cornerback has. But I do think that theory, and obviously it's like playing sides, for the safeties, like playing right and left versus like one's a free safety, one's a strong safety, like that stuff, and being able to interchange both him and Jaquan Brisker they were doing that last year. That isn't just like specific to Dennis Allen. That's something that they were doing under Matt Eberflus. So I think it helps. And I think the versatility that they have in the secondary has allowed them to mitigate some of the injury issues up, in the back end of the defense. But more than anything, like I think a lot of this has to do with Dennis Allen and his ability to adapt, because you're down again to like 2 linebackers last week, because we knew that obviously Jalen Reeves-Maben was called up from the practice squad, but he wasn't going to play on defense. Like that's just not what he does. So like you have 2 linebackers. What are you going to do if you're to mitigate Saquon Barkley, to do all of these things that you should in theory be limited with the personnel that you have? So he's like, well, we're not generating pressure consistently with our 4 pass rushers. We're going to play more nickel. They've lived in nickel pretty much. Like we're going to play more dime. We're going to, use these dime packages on third down with the DBs that they had, because they had an abundance of health at DB. Jalen Johnson's back. Doesn't mean Deshaun Wright can't play. Tyreek Stevenson's out, but Kyler Gordon's back. Doesn't mean that CJ Gardner-Johnson isn't going to be on the field in some capacity. And I think just the way that he's been able to, like Ben Johnson, with the pulse on his offensive game plan, and like knowing when to push certain buttons. I think Dennis Allen has that too, which is, you look back at the hires and the decisions that Ben Johnson made when forming this staff, the Dennis Allen one was of high importance. And I think that you're not just starting to see, you've been seeing that thing play out in the return on investment that they've gotten from a defensive coordinator who has been able to mitigate some of those injury issues that they have all over the defense, but particularly the back 7, by cross-training players, by also like utilizing, different sub packages to still remain aggressive, even when you don't have your best 11 out there.
For what is Ozzie Trapillo playing right now? How much is this an extended audition, just a tremendous opportunity? And how much does this really reflect how far he's come since that incredibly underwhelming competition we saw in training camp?
I'll start with the last part of your question. I think that it reflects very, very highly on this coaching staff, on Dan Rochar, for being able to get a player who honestly had to tap out. Like he was nowhere near ready. He needed a reset. He hit the rookie wall, as Ryan Poles said, and they needed to figure out how can we get this guy ready to play left tackle at some point? Because Darnell Wright is your right tackle. And there would be no reason to draft a player who was a right tackle, expecting him to stay playing right tackle when you spent a first-round pick on a right tackle 2 years before. So the goal has always been, can we get Ozzie ready to play left tackle? And early on, it didn't look promising. But I think behind the scenes, the coaching staff deserves a lot of credit for finding a way to reset him in the middle of, at the end of training camp, and really behind the scenes for the first 4 weeks. I mean, he played over at right tackle when Wright had that elbow injury against the Raiders, but then finding a spot where Theo Benedette unfortunately has a quad injury, and it gave them an opening to see a player earn a spot. And then when you heard Ben Johnson, I was a little skeptical of it. Like, he's the thing about him that he doesn't lie when he is talking. He doesn't heap effusive praise and then not back it up. That's something that I think we've learned that's a tell about Ben Johnson, that I think it's happened like one or two other times here. I mean, you can go back to a couple Minnesota game. Before that, he's talking. That was the coming into the Minnesota game. I think it was, they played the Giants the week before when they had all those drops.
Yep. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, and he was talking about the drops are an anomaly. How do you correct it and all this stuff? But then Luther Burden's name was thrown in there about Ben said he deserves more playing time. What happens in Minnesota? He takes Olamide Zaccheaus' snaps. So that was one tell. Then obviously the way that Ben Johnson talked about Ozzie Trapillo going into the Black Friday game should have been a very, I was mad at myself for not picking up on it more, because it was so obvious and blatant how they felt about it, that it was like, oh, there is a window for this guy to continue playing at left tackle, even with Theo Benedette healthy. So long-term, is it an audition? Absolutely. I think he'd have to do something. You're not going to be switching left tackles left and right. I think I think something would have to happen, injury or very poor play, for him to lose that job the rest of the season. But the stakes are a lot higher now. They've got to win 2 more games minimum to get into the postseason. It will take 11. Ben Johnson is right about that. And you can't afford, but as good as the offensive line has looked, you would think that this will continue on, especially when they have the clear advantage against a pretty banged up Packers D-line, to keep Ozzie Trapillo there and to expect that he's going to continue to grow in this process.
All right, last thing for you, Courtney, and of course the most important question. What are your plans for Big Ten championship game?
I will be watching. I'm thrilled that the Packers game got moved to 3:25 on Sunday, because it gives me a little bit more of a chance to not have to, do that tight turnaround, obviously, the next morning. But I'm pumped. I will be watching somewhere in Chicago on Saturday night. And God, there's so much on the line. Heisman Trophy, #1 overall seed in the CFP. I think, obviously both teams will get a first round bye regardless. I'm pretty confident in that, but that goes think about what 2020 could have been had there not been the cancellation of the season, then putting it back on, and, Indiana meeting the requirement of getting to play in that Big Ten championship game. We would have gotten it back then. And I'm really happy that it's going to take place this year, 5 years too late, in my opinion, but for this team to be 12-0, going into this, and everything that has happened in the last 2 years, I'm really excited for Saturday.
I have one last thing for you, Courtney. When you mentioned at the outset about LaFleur and Ben Johnson trading playful barbs publicly, is it a bit, or is there something that underlies this?
I think Zach Taylor would be the person that I'd love to ask that question to, because obviously he knows both guys pretty darn well, especially Ben. But it's always felt like, because obviously, I think his his Lions teams were 5-1 when he was an offensive coordinator there, going against the Packers, and he puffed his chest out about that. And I loved it. I thought that it was good it reignited the rivalry in a way that it needed to be, but I don't think it was anything more than a playful jab. But I don't think Matt LaFleur took it as that early on. You remember his comments from owners meetings, he was kind of like, what are you getting at here? It just felt like he was not really in on the joke, but I like that Ben Johnson leaned in on it. He's not leaning in this week though. Anybody who's asked him about it, he's respectfully declined to go any further into it.
Well, Courtney, the most recent bracket has the #1 seed facing Alabama or Oklahoma. The 2 seed gets Notre Dame, who shouldn't be 10, or Texas A&M.
To be able to have the first round bye, to have the home game, to be like the home team in
Home
that
team,
seat.
sure.
Obviously, it'll be played somewhere else, but there's so honestly, am I excited for the SEC championship? Sure, because I would like chaos. I'd like to see what would happen if Alabama loses, if the committee's really got the gall to leave them out as an at-large bid, but. There's no bigger game than the Big Ten championship this week, unless you're looking at the ACC championship and rooting for chaos to see if they don't get a team in, if Duke somehow pulls that thing out.
I love it. I love the information that is provided, and it's clear you're following it closely. I will say that. I mean, all the Bears stuff and all the professional stuff that you've got going. The fact that you're still repping them is very cool.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Thanks, Courtney.
All right, thanks, guys. Take care.
That is Courtney Cronin of ESPN, and
the church bells were dinging.
Yeah, you heard that. Yeah, go to church. Dear old school. I love it,
man. I'm how excited are you for this game?
Which one?
The Packers. Bears Packers.
I'm really excited for it.
Yeah.
I am. It's every game now, though.
I know. Ben
Johnson's done that. At the very least, he has brought back that childlike feeling of anticipation for a Bears game. And I always said it when I was a kid, that there was nothing like getting excited about a Bears game. And this was after, when as a really young kid, when we went to every game and we had season tickets, and your Sunday was pile into the car and bundle up and get the asbestos hand warmers where you light the fuel stick on fire and snap it closed and put those in your pockets. But that's just that feeling of everything builds to the Bears game is kind of back again.
Yeah, it's interesting because I had that feeling all the way up into my 30s, or no, late 20s, until I started working at the Score.
and then killed every moment of happiness in your life.
No, not moment of happiness, but it changed the way I was a fan of my teams.
Of course it does.
It has
You're
to.
a professional,
it has to. Well, I wouldn't say that. I said a professional job. But it was, I even into my late 20s, my whole week was built around like what the Bears were like. What's the plan for the game? What are we eating for the game? Are we watching the game? It was all about looking forward to that Bears game on Sunday. And now, yeah, it is there. And like professionally, we're in different spots, but I'm still a crazy fan despite doing this every day for our job.
That's kind of the point. And
it's kind of the goal that you can get it.
Yeah, being able to straddle that line, and as long as you don't allow your fandom to compromise your objectivity when it comes to criticizing them. And I think that is ultimately the goal, and that's sort of what I would hear. I always mention the name Doug Buffone, and I at a very young age, when I realized if 55 could do it, if this guy whose actual heart and soul was so intertwined, and nobody could give them more honest, forthright, immediate criticism, when it never pulled a punch. He'd call an idiot an idiot. He would call a bad play. And if somebody like that could do it and not feel he had to cape for the team and hide the bad, then that's the exemplar of what you should strive in that regard.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And man, working with Doug doing Bear stuff was one of the highlights of my radio career. Just being around Doug, and I for like personally, I'm not sure. I know I do. I err on the other side of it where I'm maybe extra critical.
Yes, that's fine.
Because I am, because I'm a huge meatball fan. I am, and it's my favorite sport to watch. It's my favorite team. And, I love the Bears more than the Cubs. You know how much I love the Cubs, but it's like, this is a Bears town. I'm a Bears fan. And so sometimes I probably do go over the line of being critical to try to maybe mask how much I am so passionate about the team. But, whatever. And I thought what Courtney said about Ben was interesting. And so from her perspective, like, it was not like anything got to him. It just he heard that back himself and thought, all right, I'm going to rectify this, knowing what the narrative has been all year long.
And he's
and
learning.
again,
Ben's learning
No,
too. Like
he
that's
is.
he's never been a head coach before.
Right.
He's never, let alone
Right,
in
he's
this
12 games
market,
in. Right.
dealing with jerks like us and dealing with everybody who's been here for God knows how many years and how many coaches and how many general managers and how many executives and players, that he's never done this before. And I think for him to continue to do it with such aplomb is pretty amazing.
No, he's been remarkable for a first-year head coach, and I can tell you, as my fandom speaking here, that I brought my PTSD into this season with my quarterbacks because, I mean, it's been such a roller coaster as a Bears fan. I started regularly watching the Bears when I was 10 years old. It's 1983. 83, and
so McMahon was there.
McMahon was there.
Your
but
first quarterback was McMahon.
Was Jim McMahon, right?
Mine was Virgil Carter. So
who?
Virgil Carter?
That was a Bears quarterback?
Yes. That's just as Bob Avellini was taking over from Virgil Carter.
Ooh.
You don't
How
remember?
Good was Virgil Carter? No, I don't remember Virgil
Carter.
Carter.
Verge?
No, I don't.
Verge, that was, it was, you don't remember Verge?
I don't. I mean, again, I started regularly watching the Bears in 1983. That's when my sports viewing and fanship really took off, was 83. And, dude, look at that, though. I mean, the Bulls draft Jordan in 84. The Bears go to the Super Bowl in January of 86.
No, it was wasn't. Virgil was done in 69. So technically I was born when he started.
When he started, okay.
Yeah.
But my Chicago sports thing, you have Jordan drafted, the Bears win the Super Bowl, the Cubs go to the playoffs, the White Sox go to the playoffs. I was like, shit, this is amazing. What a great town to be in. And then the rest happened. And then, the 90s came about, and Jordan's like, all right, I'm just going to win, the next 6 out of the 8, and then I'm going to quit for gambling and play baseball and do all this good stuff. But it was just like the fanship of the Bears was just, it's the deepest and the most passionate for me in my entire life. And so having all those experiences of quarterbacks coming in, I am going to look at Caleb Williams in a very critical eye, because I'm not going to trust it until I can trust it. And I'm working hard to get there to trust the kid. And there are aspects of his game that are still very frustrating to watch.
I get it. So so then for me it was Jack Concannon was in 1971.
Okay, yeah.
And then
I know the name, but I don't think I've ever seen him.
I caught a pass from Jack Concannon one summer.
Were you a wide receiver or?
No, he lived in Deerfield, and he was a member at a swimming and tennis club called Tenaqua in Deerfield, right by 294.
Okay.
And there was a big field, and he would occasionally play pickup football with kids, and he'd be the all-time quarterback. And then there'd be, 6 kids playing 3-on-3, and he would throw passes, and he would quarterback both teams.
That's cool, and I'm sure it was harmless. It sounds creepy, but that's cool.
No, it was great, and and that way you could say, you caught a pass from the Bears quarterback or former Bears quarterback, and so then it was Bobby Douglas.
Wait, was he throwing like the SNL skit with Peyton Manning, like rifling balls at the back of kids' heads? And
probably not. If I was able to catch it when I was a toddler or a youngster. He was retired at that point, so I was
saying you weren't playing
76
pickup football as a toddler.
No, it was probably 7 or 8 because he was done at that point. I don't even remember what he was doing then, but it was Bobby Douglas, and then he couldn't really throw it to anybody. He could only throw it 100 miles an hour. You would not want to play pickup football with him because Bobby would throw it 100 miles an hour at your feet. It would bounce into you and hurt you. And then let's see. And then because Virgil was done, and then it was him, and then it was Avellini. And bad. Although I think Bob Avellini still holds the record for most consecutive seasons or most consecutive games from a Bears quarterback.
Oh, really?
I think that's right. I mean, because Gary Huff was there too. And then what year did Bob Avellini take over? There was Joe Barnes was another name they had. I'm trying to remember all of these bad quarterbacks. But, I think Avellini started 75, 76, and then he was just kind of there. It was just the dude. Yeah.
Yeah, my first guy was McMahon. That's what it all started. And I'm going to have something for you tomorrow for DBU looking at quarterbacks. So, Bears
really?
quarterbacks. Yeah, I got something I'm putting together for you.
Really?
Yeah, really.
Before we get done today, can I announce something that is really absolutely awesome?
Yes, you can if it is what I think it is.
It is.
Okay. Yeah, of course you can.
Because
it's active, so.
312 Sports, Forward Progress, Dan Bernstein Unfiltered, Organizations Win Championships, we have an app.
Yes, we do.
A free 312 Sports app right now in the App Store. It's in the Apple App Store or in Google Play.
Continue. Ooh.
Go get it.
Don't allow.
Go get
Boom, look at that.
the app. Go get it. Go get it. Go get it. It is, and I can say this because I know that there may be people listening to this show who have experience with other
apps,
yep. with which some of my programming has been associated. This is not that. This one works.
Oh yeah, I never used that other thing, so I couldn't. You're not speaking to me right now, my man.
Okay. I want to say this. Go get this app, and there's going to be. It's just the beginning. We haven't even had our meeting yet. Full disclosure, we haven't had our official meeting to explain to us how it all works, because you're going to be able to leave audio messages, video messages, text messages. We're going to be able to do live polling. This is going to be a fully interactive, connective part of what we do here. I know our social media dude, Cody Delmendo, is just trying to get his arms around everything that this is capable of doing. So I haven't figured it out yet, but you're probably way ahead of me. So get on it, download it, have it, register. Make sure you register because
you have to register. Yeah.
Because there's going to be listener rewards. It's going to be like frequent flyer miles.
Well, then and the feedback, there's like live polls, quick message, send audio, send photo or video. But you have to be registered. So get yourself registered. Do that.
It's a free app. All you have to do is register, and it's going to turbocharge everything that we're doing at 312 Sports, and it's going to make you a much more active part of everything that we're doing. I cannot wait to learn about all of its capabilities, but the 312 Sports app.
Yeah, and Dan, there's already one contest on here for a $100 gift card, so go check it out. It's to a restaurant in Chicago, the Chicago Firehouse Restaurant, but that's already up there.
I know it well. Oh, that's already up? Okay. Yeah. So that's going to populate eventually, and as soon as we can, with all kinds of opportunities. The more you listen, you'll build up points, and you'll be able to redeem that for free stuff. And it's an app of the people for the people. Or something.
Right. We won't be taking our shirts off though anytime soon. But
why not?
Because I don't want to do that.
You don't want me to do it. You want to do it.
Well, I mean, if we're going to vote for who should do it, I would hope people would vote for me.
I don't know. It'd be Dad Bod Central here. Should we do a shirtless show if the Bears win the Super Bowl?
Done. Okay, Bears make the Super Bowl. Post game is done shirtless.
Win.
Really?
No, we're not. If they win the Super Bowl, that's not going to be our legacy of doing a shirtless show. Pantsless.
No, because that's every day when we're at home. All right, let's say Bears make the Super Bowl. We do it shirtless. They win though, no shirtless. I mean, no, we can't.
I'm not promising it. No, this is not. I'm not declaring anything. I'm not. I'm not making that declaration right now.
All right, Bears win the Super Bowl. There's a broadcast in the future season that we do shirtless.
Fine.
Okay.
Fine. I'll make an open-ended promise.
Maybe like a training camp. We can do like a training camp remote some point somewhere shirtless.
Where it's hot out. Yeah, do you like the Harry Carey and the bleachers thing?
Yeah.
Remember that? Yeah. Hey, I'm not wearing a shirt, boy, oh boy.
2 cases of Budweiser each. Yeah.
Harry spent the entire time in the bleachers just leering at women, just drinking and leering.
I still love my favorite Steve Stone story about him is turning the heat up in the broadcast booth at Wrigley, where the vents were down below their feet, and he could adjust the temperature, and he would make it super hot and just watch Harry just sweat and complain about how hot he was because the heat was on.
God, it's hot in here. They had that, and then they had the upper heater at Shea Stadium where Ron Santo melted his hair. Remember?
Oh, that's right. Didn't it catch on fire?
Yeah.
wasn't that Michael Jackson? Didn't he catch his hair on fire?
He didn't catch Ronsanto's hair on fire.
No, his own, I think. Wasn't it a Pepsi commercial maybe?
Yes.
Or something?
I think he exploded. I don't think he just caught his hair on fire. I thought he blew up real good. No.
Have you seen the trailer for the new Michael Jackson movie coming out?
No.
It looks really good. It's one of his nephews is playing him.
Oh, sort of like O'Shea Jackson Jr. played Ice Cube kind of thing.
Yes, sort of like that. Yeah, and it looks really good. So,
all right, I'll take your word on that.
Looking forward to seeing that.
All right, but just download the 312 app. That way, if I can leave you with anything, do that. Thanks to Courtney, and thank you for joining us today on Forward Progress, a Chicago Bears podcast.
10, 219, 219.
Forward Progress, a Chicago Bears podcast with Dan Bernstein and Matt Abeticola on 312 Sports.